The National Hurricane Center's Hurricane Awareness Tour recently made a stop in Harrisburg for the first time ever. Stated purpose to educate residents of vulnerable communities about hurricane preparedness.
Tours like this are critical because, it gets to the point where you read about preparedness and eventually it becomes more of like a bumper sticker, right? To come out here and actually see it in action, meet the heroes flying into hurricanes, meet the people doing the forecasting for hurricanes, and all the others, to see it in action, that's where you really learn. And we're generating new meteorologists in the future, but not only that, we're talking about preparedness. Seeing it is believing it.
Harrisburg was the second stop on the 5-city Hurricane Awareness Tour that also included visits to Quonset, Rhode Island, Roanoke, Virginia, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Brunswick, Georgia. The tour featured many others involved in the observation and forecasting of tropical storms and hurricanes at the National Hurricane Center.
Well, we really just try to raise the awareness about the hazards associated with tropical storms and hurricanes because they can affect such a wide area, not just at the coast, but hundreds of miles inland, well away from where a storm makes landfall. You can have flooding, you can have tornadoes, you can have from heavy rainfall, and then also the coastal hazards with winds and storm surge. So it's just to remind people, especially in areas that don't get affected all that often, that this risk is real. It's real every year, and you have to plan for and prepare what's possible in your area.
You have to know your risk is step one. You can't write a plan unless you know what you're planning for. So know your risk. From there, you can start the planning process. And understanding that risk, it really comes from experience. We have to realize that you can't always use your past experience to write your plan because it may have been a while. So that is so critical. Think about what could happen versus what you think has happened in the past.
And of course, Pennsylvania's past with tropical storms and hurricanes is not so much about wind as it is about heavy rain and subsequent flooding.
If you look at the data, 83% of fatalities in the last 3 years from tropical systems has been inland flooding. Over half of those in automobiles. We have to continue the conversation about inland flooding and automobiles. In Pennsylvania, knows very well the biggest disasters that happen in the state are from flooding. So that's the conversation we have to have. That's what we have to be prepared for.
Another theme of the Hurricane Awareness Tour was trying to make sure the focus stays on what really matters, the impacts from tropical storms and hurricanes.
We're really trying to focus more on the individual hazards. For a long time there's been a focus on, what's the exact location of the storm? Where's the center going to go? What are the peak winds? We're really trying to get away from that and focus on the hazards because they extend so far away from the center of the storm. They can extend hundreds of miles away from where the center of the storm makes landfall. You can have a storm that makes landfall on the Gulf Coast and can cause catastrophic flooding in the mid-Atlantic and northeast United States hundreds of miles away. So again, focusing products and information on those hazards, storm surge, winds, heavy rainfall, flooding, and tornadoes is really where we're trying to push that information now, in addition to improving the forecasts themselves that drive all that information.
And those forecasts, of course, originate from the National Hurricane Center. More on NHC and looking ahead to this hurricane season tomorrow night in part 2 of our hurricane season preview. For Weather World, I'm John Nese.